Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our meeting of Brampton's Audit Committee. All members are present today with Councillor Brar online, and citizen member Nicole Russell has sent her regrets. So next is the approval of the agenda. Do any members wish to add any business items to today's meeting? Seeing none, and there is no updates from the clerk's office. Okay. We have a motion moved by Councillor Vicente to approve the agenda. All those in favor? The motion carries. We're on to declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Do any members have any declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for any matter to be considered on today's agenda? Any online? No. Seeing none, the clerk will so note for the meeting minutes. That brings us to consent. Committee, as part of our consent motion process, I will read each agenda item that is subject to the consent motion, and any member may verbally identify the item to be held for debate during the meeting. Any item not held for debate will be considered as part of the consent motion and voted on for approval. I'll start reading the relevant agenda items, and members can identify any items to be held for debate. Item 6.1, staff report regarding fleet maintenance audit. Hold by Councillor Poleshi. 6.2, staff report regarding limited tendering audit report. Is also held. Councillor Poleshi. Staff report regarding asset management, small equipment and operation tools audit 2023. Also held. 6.4, staff report regarding 2024 internal audit work plan and 2023 status update. Consent. 6.5, staff report regarding the status of management action plans Q4 2023. Consent. 6.6, staff report regarding annual report 2023. I'll hold that. And 11.1, open meetings exception under section 2392A of the Municipal Act 2001. The security of property of the municipality, local board, a security matter. And I will also hold that. The clerk will summarize those items held for members for consideration not part of the consent motion prior to the approval of the motion.
Through the chair, the items being held for discussion include item 6.1, held staff report regarding fleet maintenance audit, held by Councillor Poleshi. Item 6.2, staff report regarding limited tendering audit report 2023, held by Councillor Poleshi. Item 6.3, staff report regarding asset management, small equipment and operating tools audit 2023, held by Councillor Poleshi. Item 6.6, staff report regarding the annual report 2023, held by Councillor Keenan. And item 11.1, open meeting exception under section 2392A of the Municipal Act, held by Councillor Keenan.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Poleshi to approve the consent motion. All those in favor? The motion carries. Okay, that would bring us to directly into 6.1, but prior to going to 6.1, I know that the director would like to take a few moments to introduce her team.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So if the staff can stand up when I call your name. I thought I would take this opportunity to introduce staff to you, to the audit committee, seeing that this is the first audit committee for 2024. And also we've had some turnover and new positions that, we just filled. So first person is Brad Cecile. Brad is one of our audit managers, and Brad has a CPA and a CIA designation and over 15 years of experience in internal audit, process improvement, in manufacturing, logistics, and project management. He started with the city in 2020 and has completed a number of audits, including parks and maintenance, development charges, and property tax. Mia Tree is our other audit manager, and she is a CPA and CIA with over 15 years of experience in internal auditing. She joined the internal audit division in September 2023. Before her role at the City of Brampton, she specialized in conducting risk-based audit and consulting services for banks, insurance companies, and pension plans in the private sector. Welcome, Mia. And Sahil Sharma is one of our recent audit project leads who joined us in late November and has extensive experience in audit and taxation. He spent 6 to 7 years in audit at Deloitte, serving listed companies, and 3 years in tax planning. He holds a Canadian CPA designation and is keen to further his work in municipal setting. And since joining, participated in the limited tendering and small equipment operating tools audit, which you're going to hear today. Thank you, and welcome, Sahil. Min Peng. Min Peng is another of our audit project leads that joined us in March 2023, who holds both the CPA and CIA designation. She has over 11 years of experience in accounting and internal audit, focused on data analytics and project management. She came from the Office of Auditor General of New Brunswick, and since joining the city, has participated in development charges audit, applied data analytical skills to conduct a property tax audit, asset management audit, as well as the fleet maintenance audit. Thank you, Min. And Richard Gervais. Richard is our senior advisor, IT audit, with over 15 years of experience in information technology in various roles with increasing responsibility. More broadly, he's been in the audit field for over 20 years. He holds CISA and CISSP certifications, both important designations in the fields of IT audit and IT security. Finally, Richard's IT and audit experience covers government, telecommunications, and financial technology sector. Thank you, Richard. Cynthia Kans. Cynthia Kans is our new senior advisor, audit communications, and provides strategic leadership in executing communication strategies and messaging to maximize the impact of internal audit work. She has over 20 years of experience in strategic communications, including working at Hydro One Brampton, launching their social media campaign during the 2013 ice storm, supporting the merger of electric utilities and moving into healthcare, as a senior advisor during the COVID, providing crisis communications advice. Thank you, Cynthia, and welcome on board. And Kevin Mahadio. Kevin Mahadio joins us as the new advisor, research, administration, and special projects, most recently from the Ministry of Children, Community, and Social Services, where he led and supported several research planning and evaluation projects related to social assistance transformation. Prior to that, he held various roles at the City of Toronto and Region of Peel, focused on intergovernmental relations, project management, and human services policy and research, respectively. Welcome on board, Kevin. And that concludes my introduction to the staff. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire, and welcome everybody. So that will bring us to our next item, which is 6.1, a staff report titled Fleet Maintenance Audit. This was held by Councillor Paleshi, and I do know that there is a presentation regarding this audit that we should receive before considering the item. So if you're okay with that, we'd like to see the presentation. So Claire, could you tell us who's going to give us that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So Brad, Cecile, and Min Peng work on this audit, and Brad will present the report. But before that, I just wanted to appreciate the staff, the support that we got from fleet management, including, I think, Rob Gasper, Director of Road Maintenance Operations and Fleet, and he's here attending. And also Aaron Moss is the Manager of Fleet Operations, and they've provided support at the time we needed, and we had a pretty tight timeline, so I just wanted to acknowledge their assistance and help during this audit. And with that, I want to pass it to Brad, who will make the presentation. Thank you, Brad.
Okay, thank you, Claire. As Claire mentioned, I will be presenting the fleet maintenance audit. Next slide, please. Fleet Maintenance and Operations performs maintenance and repairs to all city vehicles and equipment, excluding vehicles managed by fire and transit. The Ontario Highway Traffic Act requires that regulated and heavy vehicles must undergo a vehicle safety at least every 12 months, and any heavy vehicle must also be inspected regularly. The Fleet Maintenance Unit has 29 employees, including 18 mechanics, 2 general garage helpers, a welder, 4 inventory stock keepers, a clerk, 3 mechanical supervisors, and a supervisor of maintenance and operations. Next slide, please. Our audit focused on the 422 licensed vehicles managed by fleet maintenance. Staff uses the M5 system to manage all aspects of fleet maintenance, including preventative maintenance scheduling, work orders, operating expense tracking, purchasing and parts inventory, labor hours, and warranty information. Next. The city has 2 garages, Williams Parkway Operations Center and Sandalwood Operations Yard. Any work that cannot be completed in-house due to capacity or resource constraints is sent to outside repair facilities. Throughout the audit period, on average, approximately 20% of work orders at Williams Parkway and 30% at Sandalwood were outsourced. Next slide. The main areas of focus for this audit was compliance to laws and policies, preventative maintenance, repair process, warranty claims, outsourced work, and parts inventory. Next. The audit found that overall, the core activities of a complete fleet maintenance program are in place. However, there are opportunities for improvement in a number of areas that impact the effectiveness of the preventative maintenance program, compliance with provincial legislation and fleet maintenance policies, monitoring of procurement activity and vendor invoices, and authorized access to inventory. Our review of the preventative maintenance program found that the manufacturer's recommended service intervals are not integrated into the preventative maintenance schedule. We also found that vehicles are not always maintained within the city's recommended time and mileage standards of 12 months or 10,000 kilometers. Next. Not integrating the manufacturer's recommended service intervals into the preventative maintenance schedule does not ensure that the maintenance program is optimized for all vehicles. This can lead to more expensive repairs. It can also result in the voiding of the manufacturer's warranty. Secondly, not maintaining vehicles within established time and mileage intervals increases the risk of breakdowns and repairs and can reduce the life of the vehicle. Finding number 2, vehicle mileage is not always updated. The preventative maintenance schedule is driven by mileage entered in M5. Mileage can be updated in 3 ways. At the time of service at city garages, at city fuel pumps through vehicle data units, or when fueling at SO with fuel cards. Our review of these 3 processes noted issues with 2 of them. Firstly, mileage is not always updated at the time of service. For 6% of maintenance services, the mileage entered was either the same or less than mileage entered the previous service. Secondly, mileage is not always updated when fueling at city fuel pumps. As of September 1st, 2023, 88 vehicle data units, or approximately 21%, were not operating properly, and thus unable to transfer mileage into M5 when fueling at city pumps. Not maintaining accurate vehicle mileage impedes the effectiveness of the preventative maintenance schedule. It also increases the risk of vehicles exceeding required maintenance intervals, which can increase the risk of repairs and reduce the life of the vehicle. This finding compounds the impact of the first finding, since the maintenance interval may be based on inaccurate mileage. Next, please. Finding number 3. Driver vehicle inspection reports are seldom completed by user departments. Driver vehicle inspection reports should be completed every day in order to meet the requirements of the province, as well as the requirement of the city's preventative maintenance policy. We randomly selected 15 vehicles to verify whether operating units had completed a DVR during the last week of September and October. We found that only 2 out of the required 45 DVIR forms were on file. Next slide. Not completing the driver vehicle inspection reports does not ensure that the vehicle operator is aware of potential mechanical or safety issues with the vehicle. Operating a vehicle without a completed DVR can result in fines or penalties from the Ministry of Transportation. If a vehicle is found to be operating with a major defect, it can result in up to a $20,000 fine and the vehicle being impounded. Next. Finding number 4, preventative maintenance forms are not always completed. Each preventative maintenance service should have an inspection form manually filled out by the mechanic. Out of a sample of 23 preventative maintenance work orders completed in-house, only 12 of them had a completed PM inspection form on file. We also sampled 10 outsourced preventative maintenance work orders and found that the PM inspection form was not sent for any of them. It should be noted that fleet maintenance staff reached out to the outside vendors and was able to obtain all 10 of these forms, which indicates that preventative maintenance inspection forms are being completed by our vendors, but are not being sent to fleet maintenance staff. Not having completed preventative maintenance forms for each maintenance service results in incomplete maintenance records and increases the risk that incomplete inspections will not be detected. Finding number 5, warranty terms in M5 are incomplete. When a vehicle is added to fleet, the warranty terms are entered in M5 by fleet administration staff. However, warranty information in M5 is not always complete. A sample of 10 vehicles purchased within the audit period was selected. For all 10 samples, the engine and powertrain warranty terms were entered in M5. However, for 2 samples, the warranty terms on corrosion of 3 years and unlimited kilometers was not entered. Further review of the M5 warranty report found 2 2019 Ford F550s that did not have any warranty terms entered in M5. Not maintaining complete warranty information in M5 increases the risk that repair work is performed or paid for on warranty-eligible vehicles. Finding number 6, significant vendor spending did not go through competitive procurement. We reviewed vendor activity for outsourced maintenance from January 2021 to October 2023 and noted one vendor with accumulated spending of $435,000 and another with accumulated spending of $250,000 do not have a purchase order. Another vendor had a purchase order of $21,000 with $3,000 remaining on it. However, staff spent an additional $26,000 outside of the PO through P-card purchases. Not having a purchase order in place does not ensure the efficiency, effectiveness, or economy of procurement activity. It also reduces the ability to control and monitor total vendor spend and does not allow for department and procurement approvals on the total contract amount. Finding number 7, review of vendor invoices needs to be improved. One vendor is regularly charging $169 per hour for labor, and another is regularly charging $165 per hour, even though the current contract for both vendors states $130 per hour. There are approximately 500 invoices, over $200 combined for these 2 vendors within the contract period. Staff should self-audit all invoices, determine the amount of overpayment, and recover these overpayments. Lack of a proper review of invoices against contract terms results in overcharges going undetected. Finding number 8, access to parts storage rooms is not properly restricted. Many individuals have badge access to the parts storage rooms that do not need it. These individuals mostly include employees from other departments, as well as outside cleaners, temporary card holders, and former fleet maintenance employees. Staff should identify individuals that do not require access to the parts rooms and work with security to remove access. Not restricting access to vehicle parts rooms increases the risk of unauthorized entry and theft. Implementing the recommendations in the audit report will improve preventative maintenance processes, reinforce compliance with provincial legislation and fleet maintenance policies, strengthen the oversight of purchasing activity, and safeguard vehicle parts inventory from theft. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you for the detail. I do have a question from Councillor Paleshi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess just to start, the M5 system, is it a user-friendly system for, and with that question, is it one operator per vehicle? Does that same operator constantly and always operate that one vehicle?
So in terms of the M5, they, from what I gather from staff, they're pretty, I think overall, they're pretty happy with what they're able to manage in the M5 system. In terms of the operators and M5, the operators are at the business department, and M5 is just the system that's used by fleet maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, the actual vehicle operators don't have any interaction with M5. But in terms of, I guess the second half of your question, in terms of is it one operator per vehicle, yes. My understanding is generally there's one operator has the same vehicle and uses it all the time.
Okay, and so that operator, we're not sure if they are doing their inspection or their pre-inspection sheets. We're just sure that they're not handing them all in.
Right.
Is there a possibility that they're still in the vehicle, or?
It's possible. Fleet maintenance has taken a lot of steps to make it as easy as for the user departments as possible. So, for example, they've put like mailboxes, for lack of a better term, in 3 or 4 different places where the different operating departments can go and drop their completed DVIR forms, and then fleet maintenance staff go and they pick it up once a week. So is it possible they're completing it but not actually dropping it in one of those mail slots? Possible, but unlikely.
Is it a booklet?
It's a form. It's a single sheet.
And it's our own internal form?
It's our own internal form, but
It's not the province Ontario book?
No.
No.
It's our own internal form, but it mirrors the requirements that the province lays out.
Yeah.
So it's like, call it a 32-point inspection checklist.
Yep. And on the ones that were handed in, not even, there was missing odometer readings?
On the ones that were handed in, were completed properly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure if anybody will or may recall or looked at, was there similar gap findings when we last audited fleet of fire or transit? Do we know?
I think we haven't audited a fleet for a while, to be honest. It's a little.
We haven't audited fleet in a while.
Yeah.
But what about fire or the?
Fire is coming. It's our next, on our 2024 audit work plans. We haven't
Okay.
really looked at it.
And transit?
Same thing. Transit was
Same.
supposed to be also in the 2025 or 2024
Okay.
audit on the horizon.
Because I'm wondering, with your opening remarks, that this not include fire and transit, maybe it's time that we put all fleet,
Yes.
including fire and transit, together when we're talking about maintenance, checking the checks and balances of the, in terms of any of the maintenance, manufacturer warranties and anything like that. Maybe there should be one overarching kind of umbrella for all of them.
Through the chair, if I may address this. So we do want to cover all the fleet maintenance for the city, fire and transit revenue vehicles and non-revenue vehicles included. The reason we break them into 3 different phases is because there's different requirements when you do this audit. For instance, when you look at transit audit for the revenue vehicles, they're more homogeneous you're looking at a different set. We probably put a lot more emphasis on warranty because it's easier when you have the same vehicles. You can track them, right? And for fire trucks, they are specialized vehicles. You gotta look at a little bit different from the general vehicle. So we're breaking them into three, also because we have limited resource. If we do all three fleet audit in 1 year, we're gonna forget about some of the other risks that the city have. But it is, in 2024 or 2025, it's all coming.
Right, audit, and audit could continue, but I assume that it's all separate now anyways,
Yes, it is.
within M5. But there's no one person or one department that fire maintenance, transit maintenance, and fleet maintenance goes up to.
No.
Because there's obviously a gap somewhere. And as of right now, I'm only seeing it in fleet. But if there's somebody up there or something up there, then the gap's in all three, right? We assume that when we do fire, we're gonna find the same issues. When we do transit, we're gonna find the same issues.
If I may, through the chair, if you feel like you wanted the staff to take a look at the recommendation for the general fleet to see if they are applicable to fire and transit, you can easily do so by making a motion. And this is very common for us.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how fire and transit come out in terms of their audits. Alex, you have the background in the transit?
Yeah, if that's okay.
You know
thank
what
you
I'm
through you,
asking.
Chair, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we did have several years ago an audit in fleet and transit. It's governed under a bit of a different, because of requirements to report in the MTO, we do get audits by the MTO as well. Transit's held at a different level because of the passenger carrying and the insurance requirements as well as part of the Commercial Vehicle Act. So the M5 is the same system. They are partitioned differently for fire versus transit versus other areas in the city. But we have a requirement, I know, in transit that has to be reconciled to each bus. And that bus is always up to date, the files are proper, and we get audited periodically by MTO as well, on spot checks as well. And we look forward, I know, in dealing with our audit colleagues here, that they're targeting 24, 25. We're hoping 25 just because of volume of work that Transit is implementing in 24 for resourcing, but we welcome audits and we're looking forward to that as it comes.
Mm-hmm. But M5 isn't fixing, and Rob, you can step in here if I'm out of order, but M5 isn't gonna fix laziness. And is that what we're looking at, essentially? If an operator isn't doing the checklist or writing down the odometer reading or handing in the paperwork, is that essentially what this is? So I'd be interested to.
So through the chair to Councilor Paleshi, we are looking at that as definitely a piece of it that we are going to monitor more closely so that the information is being gathered and it is being put into M5.
Okay. In terms of the P card spending, are people using the P card are they needing to use the P card when the spending, whatever they're spending it on, is outside of that purchase order? Or is it going kind of hand in hand the same if they're purchasing brakes under a purchase order? Are they also purchasing brakes under the P card?
If I may, and then Brad can supplement if I. So we provided 3 examples in the slides. And the first 2 examples, we did not establish a PO, and the spending, the community spending for one vendor was about $400-some thousand. The other one was $250,000. So people just directly went through P-card. There was no competitive procurement ever done. The third example we provided is the city actually established a PO, and PO was $21,000, and we spent about $18,000 or $16,000 on it. But then we went ahead, we did another $26,000 on P-card, and without being aware that we already have a PO, we could just extend the PO. And I don't know exactly, and I think staff can comment on what happened exactly there.
How is it possible for anyone that's using their P card to not know that that there's a purchase order that's included in whatever they want to purchase. And across the organization, how is that possible? If we have a purchase order to purchase X to fix something, and how does that, and I assume it's a manager with a P card?
Through the chair to Councillor Paleshi, we do have a company on PO, but when we outsource to them, if they're at capacity, we've had to go out to the competitors and use the P card to get vehicles fixed so that they are maintained. We are going to go to a competitive process and have more vendors available to us through that process instead of just choosing one. And then in the future, we would rotate through the 4 or 5 different ones that we can have that will be able to keep us, we'll be able to fix our vehicles within the allotted time so we can get them back to the operating departments.
Okay. I guess for maintenance amounts, how is it that we have a contract with somebody for maintenance at $130 an hour, yet they charge $169 an hour or $165 an hour?
Through the chair of the Councillor Paleshi, we've gone back through all those invoices and actually met with both POs, and we are getting the money back. It was an oversight, and we've gone back and compared the invoices coming in to the POs to ensure that we are getting charged the proper amount. So the two amounts, one was $9,300 and the other one was $20,700 for a total of $30,000 that we recovered.
Okay. I guess in terms of procurement and purchase orders, then, do we now say to that vendor that they can no longer be a supplier to the city of Brampton?
So through the chair, we'll work with purchasing on the performance piece of the contract.
Okay. Okay. I guess to procurement, we have in the past tried to lower opportunities, I guess remove any risk. And that's what council certainly was trying to do in terms of lowering the dollar amounts in terms of procurements and reporting to council. Is procurement, obviously procurement's looking at this, and is there any takeaways that we're kind of maybe looking at and coming back to suggest to council, or is it early? Yep.
So through the chair to Councillor Paleshi, the current purchasing bylaw is actually up for review this year. So once our new director starts on Tuesday, that will be one of the first tasks. We'll be updating our bylaw.
Okay. And then maybe some just some suggestions brought forward, working with audit and maybe coming to council, and if there's a revamping that needs to be done, then.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the next item on the agenda will be the limited tendering audit. So there'll be a lot of recommendations coming as a result of that will be looked at and considered as part of that review.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Paleshi. I did have a list of questions, but Councillor Paleshi kind of touched on them all. And for me, I see a lot of gaps that we need to be filling. And would like to see some procedures put in place to catch these. So I want to thank Audit for catching it, the $30,000 that we overpaid. But I want to make sure that we have things in place that's not going to A, allow this to continue, or B, let it happen again. We have POs for a reason, and we need the people that are responsible for those POs and purchasing on those POs to make sure that we're not overspending. So I just wanted to get that on the record. I know we're going to talk more about in the next presentation when it comes to how we're doing things, but I struggle with the overspending. I really do. But I guess we'll find out what the findings are, and we hope that they're implemented. When it comes to our vehicles and our maintenance and getting the proper readings and dealing with the M5, for me, that's just accountability. We need to be accountable for the stuff that we're responsible for. And if you're responsible to input that information, we're expecting it to be there so that we can maintain our vehicles properly. So I want to thank Audit for this audit. And I guess that'll bring us. Anyone else have anything else to say?
Councillor Brar is on the board.
Oh, sorry, didn't see that. Councillor Brar.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to say thank you, Councillor Palashi, for bringing those points to this meeting. But also, when we talk about accountability, my question is how have we improved from the last time audit was done? So I know we're doing audit, but making sure that it's improving from the audits, from the previous audits.
Who wants to answer that one?
Through the chair to Councillor Bra, I was wondering if you're willing to hold this question just for a little bit. When I'm introducing the next audit, I will provide a little bit of background on what we did last time, and then city staff from Diane Oliveira, the city's designated purchaser, can actually provide a summary on what they have implemented so far. Would that be okay?
That would be fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Palashi to receive the presentation and approve the staff report. All those in favor? The motion carries. That would bring us to our next item, which is 6.2, a staff report titled Limited Tendering Audit Report 2023. And I know there's a presentation prior to consideration of this item. So I'm not sure, Claire, on who on your team is presenting.
Yes. So Mia Tree and Sakio Sharma worked on this report, and they are going to present. But before I ask them to present, I would like to provide some background information on the 2022 limited tendering audit, and also just to facilitate answering the questions for Councillor Bra. So I'm going to, present the rough findings from the last round, and then hopefully our city staff can respond in terms of where they are at in terms of the recommendation, the management action plans. Okay. So internal audit conducted a limited tendering audit in 2022, and the report was presented at the February 21st, 2023 audit committee. Our focus and scope in 2022 audit are different from the current audit. We focus on reviewing the city's purchasing bylaw and benchmarking the city's practices versus other cities, particularly in areas of multi-year contract approvals and the subsequent reporting to the City Council. And we've identified that multi-year contract approvals do not consider the total procurement value over the life of the contract, but only the initial year. And I believe that's been corrected already, but Olivia and Olivia can confirm that. And then the second findings we had was in relation to reporting on the limited tendering extensions and renewals. They did not specifically identify the initial procurement methods, resulting in limited visibility to the City Council. I believe that has also been corrected, but again, subject to confirmation from city staff. The third finding we had at that time was limited tendering under $100,000 was not required to be reported to City Council. I think that's the points that Councillor Palashi was making earlier on. I believe that has been corrected as well, but again, subject to confirmation. And the fourth one we have is, we also found that the city did not have a dispute process for bidders to raise any potential disagreements or concerns over the way the city conducted its procurement, despite the purchasing bylaw requirement. So the bylaw requires we have a dispute process, but in reality, we didn't have a procedure. And that, I think, I'm gonna wait for the city staff to have their input. So if, and also at the time of the audit, our sample size was only 40%, so we didn't discover all of the issues like what we did today, because at that time we were not asked just to look at one quarter's procurement. So we looked at the 40% of this, the sample size. And I think if I could ask the city staff just to confirm where you are in relation to that 4 findings, that would be very helpful for the city council before we make our presentation.
Nice, I'm just trying to find the 4 findings. Sorry, through the chair. So as a result of the 4 findings, as a result of the audit from 2022, purchasing has made some advancements in regards to seeking approval at a higher level of authority when it comes to limited tenderings, and not only to limited tenderings, but all competitive procurements across the board. So what we've done is, instead of looking at increases solely on the cumulative value of increases, we've also looked at incorporating the original contract value so that the approval is based on the overall contract spend and value versus the contract extension that is being requested at the time. In addition to that, a procurement complaints and dispute SOP has been developed and is currently with management for review and approval. We're hoping to implement that by Q1 of this year. In addition to that, so what was one of the other findings?
The
Claire, if you could
limited
help me?
tendering under $100,000 was not required to be reported to city council, but I believe you've done
So
it
that's,
now.
no, we have not. That's one of the audit recommendations that is going to be part of the purchasing bylaw review. So currently, right now, the purchasing bylaw outlines what is to be reported to council, which would include new contracts of 100,000 and greater, and it doesn't distinguish competitive versus non-competitive procurement, so in this case, limited tendering. So as part of the bylaw review would include the review of the information that's currently being reported to council, understanding that there's a certain level of sensitivity when it comes to limited tendering, so we'll be looking at potentially lowering that threshold in terms of reporting those activities to council.
Thank you. So this, you've asked your comment to explain 4 items prior to the presentation?
Yes,
Okay. Thank you, and we can just continue with the presentation right now.
okay. So if Mia can take us through, Mia and Sahil will take us through the presentation. Thank you, Mia.
Thank you, Claire. Moving on to the presentation. Next slide, please. This audit was conducted at the direction of the council, which requested internal audit to review the limited tendering activities in Q2 2023 in accordance with the city's current purchasing bylaw. Limited tendering is also known as a single or sole source procurement process, where negotiations occur with vendors based on the conditions set out in Schedule C of the purchasing bylaw without a competitive bidding process. Next slide. The city uses different procurement methods for goods and services based on transaction thresholds. So for transactions below 25,000, direct purchases are made using purchasing cards. Transactions between 25,000 and 100,000 will follow a competitive invitational procurement process. For transactions exceeding 100,000, a public tendering process is required and conducted by city staff. And for any transactions above 25,000, there are situations where limited tendering and emergency purchases can be used, either under specific conditions outlined in the purchasing bylaw or in response to emergency situations. Next slide. As discussed earlier, Schedule C of the purchasing bylaw lists the typical reasons the city may use for limited tendering, and here are 4 common examples. First, for goods and services that can only be obtained from a particular vendor. And second, for any additional goods or services from the original vendor that were not included in the initial contract, and a change of vendor isn't feasible for economic or technical reasons. Third, the supply of goods and services is controlled by a vendor operating as monopoly. And last, the outcome of a public tendering process has not been satisfactory due to insufficient bids or unconfirmed requirements. Next. The city's Q2 2023 procurement included 132 contracts with a total value of $136 million. This consisted of new contract extensions, and contract renewals. The difference between contract extensions and contract renewals is that renewals are expected following the terms set in the original contract, whereas extensions are not planned or anticipated. Next. In Q2 2023, there were a total of 57 new items, among which 15 were granted through limited tendering. Out of these 15, 4 were specifically approved by the City Council, and that left 11 new limited tendering contracts without specific council approval. Therefore, this 11 contracts were the focus of this audit. Next. The city's procurement activities in Q2 2023 also included 40 contract extensions, out of which 5 were limited tendering extensions. These 5 contract extensions were also the focus of this audit. Next slide, please. As previously explained, contract renewals are baked into the original contract and therefore are expected purchases. For this audit, as we were requested to specifically review the Q2 2023 procurement activities, the renewals were not in the scope of our review because they were already established before Q2 2023. Next. To recap, our audit has focused on the 11 limited tendering contracts newly initiated in Q2 2023, as well as the 5 contract extensions that were procured through limited tendering. In total, the 16 contracts represent 8% of the total procurement for Q2 2023, with a total value of $10.6 million. And with that, I'll hand the discussion to Sahil to continue the presentation.
Thank you, Mia. I'll jump into the audit objectives now. Our objective was to evaluate the city's purchasing activities in Q2 2023, assessing whether the newly initiated limited tendering activities and the extensions were justified and they comply with the city's existing purchasing bylaw. Next slide, please. Before we get into the findings, during the audit, we noted following strengths. Compliance to purchasing bylaws, specifically Schedule B regarding award authority in limited tendering procurements. Implementation of central repository for organizing and maintaining all the contract-related documents. Reporting regularly to Council on limited tendering procurements. Finally, management and oversight of purchasing activities are led by experienced and knowledgeable staff. On the flip side, we noted areas of improvement. First one being conflict of interest disclosure is not mandated in limited tendering. Lack of robust verification process for limited tendering justifications. Next slide, please. Jumping into the first finding, lack of conflict of interest. We noted that, according to purchasing bylaw, all bidders participating in competitive procurement process must disclose any actual, potential, or perceived conflict of interest in writing. However, under the current practice, the requirement for disclosing conflict of interest does not apply to limited tendering. Specifically, the following risk control measures have not been enforced. Submission of conflict of interest declaration by the bidder, conflict of interest declaration by city staff who participates in purchasing decisions. This can lead to compromised decision-making, lead to challenges to award decision, disrupt the selection process, and result in missed procurement. Next slide, please. Finding 2, lack or robust verification process for limited tendering justification. We noted that purchasing bylaw mandates that the buying department provide justification for limited tendering. Purchasing staff are responsible for verifying the justification before approving these limited tendering activities. Internal audit staff noted 4 out of 16 limited tendering procurements we reviewed did not include necessary documents to substantiate the justification of limited tendering. For instance, the table on the right and the third example, the buying department's justification for sole source procurement of structural leather boots was based on an outdated vendor confirmation letter that was dated 2021. Next slide, please. Lack of robust due diligence process can result in city procuring through limited tendering when a competitive procurement is more appropriate. Lack of robust due diligence process has resulted in some limited tendering procurement files lacking key documents to substantiate the justification provided by the buying department. Next slide. To wrap it up, extending the conflict of interest declaration requirement to limited tendering and formalizing the procedures for conducting due diligence review of limited tendering procurement will enhance the city's limited tendering procurement process and ensure compliance with the current purchasing bylaw. This concludes the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I will go to my board. I got Councillor Vicente.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to Claire and staff for preparing this report in, I think, a very short period of time. So the fact that you turned it around quickly for us is very much appreciated. Recognizing that from time to time, the city's procurement bylaw changes and gets updated, improved, as it were. Just want to understand, when was the last time that the procurement bylaw was updated, and why have we waited only until, I guess, in the last year to make, and perhaps I'm wrong, perhaps we've actually been working on making updates for a longer period than that. But in totality, what are the updates that we are looking to make? Through you, Chair.
Through the Chair, the bylaw was last updated in 2018. It came into effect March 2018. It's scheduled to be updated or reviewed every 5 years. So we're a little bit beyond the 5 years. We've been waiting for a permanent director of purchasing to take the lead on that before we make any significant changes to the bylaw. I could tell you that we have a list of items that we're looking to recommend to the new director for changes. And obviously there'll be stakeholder engagement with council and our city departments and benchmarking. And obviously our friends at Audit as a result of, yeah.
So it was last changed in 2018.
Yes.
That's before, I think, most of us were on council. But at that time when changes were made, was it a requirement in, like, was it standard practice, you might say, amongst municipalities to ensure that there is no conflict of interest, so that there is a conflict of interest component to the procurement process and for a verification process? Like, was that not already part of the bylaw before?
Through the Chair, in terms of conflict of interest, the bylaw hasn't changed significantly, right? There's always been a conflict of interest provision in the bylaw ensuring that bidders entering a procurement process don't have a conflict of interest, and the same from staff. In terms of expanding that to limited tendering, we haven't done so. So that wasn't necessarily removed in 2018. It's just never been part of a non-competitive process. Whereas as part of a competitive process, there is a declaration that is made by bidders when they submit a bid to the city.
So a conflict of interest declaration was required or was not required?
Was not
In the
required.
case of these few examples?
That's right, was not required, even before this new bylaw was implemented.
And through you, Chair, what is the industry practice then amongst municipalities? Is that
That's something
usually?
that would be part of our benchmarking exercise as a result of this audit finding.
Okay. So are we looking to add those requirements going forward in the new bylaw after we've done the review?
Absolutely. As part of our response to the audit, we've committed to have a process in place for declarations by April of 2024.
Okay. Is that something that staff needs in terms of direction from this committee? Or are you already taking that direction and moving ahead in that way? I suppose that would be a question to the CAO.
Through our chair to Councilor Pasante, staff is already working on that and moving ahead with it.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Paleshi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess in terms of the conflict of interest, I guess walk me through what a non-competitive bid looks like from any particular department.
Okay. So begin procurement reports that council receives for approval for procurements over $1 million. That would also apply to non-competitive procurements. So, recently there was the electric fire truck limited tendering that was approved by council. So in a scenario such as that, where the procurement is estimated to be over $1 million, there would be a begin procure report that would be presented to council for approval. Subject to council approval of that report, the city department, so in this case fire, would work with purchasing and putting a bid document together with the city's scope of work, and we would issue that procurement document to the bidder. The bidder would then submit a bid or a proposal in response to that, and then there will be potentially a negotiation with the bidder or, a direct contract award.
Okay, but in that case, that is at a high level enough to have council's support for that, and we have a conflict of interest item on the agenda that we obviously have to abide by. If it isn't going to council, walk me through what that may look like.
Okay. So typically, the department would complete the limited tendering form. So you'll see, I believe it's one of the appendices attached to the report. That form will outline the need, the estimated value of that need, the vendor that we're looking to enter negotiations with, and the justification for the sole source in accordance with the purchasing bylaw. So Schedule C of the bylaw outlines circumstances under which we can conduct a non-competitive procurement, and their justification and business case have to support one of those circumstances. They would complete that form. Typically, that form would be attached with a proposal or a quote from the vendor in which they like to engage with. It's approved in accordance, again, with the purchasing bylaw by the departmental authority. It is then provided to purchasing for purchasing's review and approval.
Okay, so if we implement then, and that's under the dollar amount that has to go to council.
Yes, correct.
So if we implement that department needs to declare if they have a conflict of interest. Could we potentially be opening ourselves up for, I guess, is it a department as a whole? Is it one particular individual in that department? And if it is one particular individual and they do have a conflict, let's say I have a conflict, I'm in that department, can I just get Paul to do it?
Through the chair, that's a great question. As part of the development of the SOP, that's something that we do have to work through, and we will look to our audit partners to help us navigate those types of questions.
And I think declaring a conflict of interest is, not only is it the right thing to do, but it doesn't put any added layers on anything. And I think what we certainly try to do is to ensure with yourselves that there's a balance, that we're not adding all of these layers. We continually talk about how we pay, the private sector pays this, and we pay this. Why is that? Because of some of those added layers that we put on to governance and whatnot. So we definitely need to find out what the balance is to ensure that we're not adding to these costs. And I get kind of the sense of a lot of things that sometimes people use their P card, because if they go that direction, there could be the potential of adding value, adding costs to that, and which we don't want to do. So does a revamp need to happen? Sure. But we need to make sure that when I go out to, anybody that I find out that we're paying $1 million for a pedestrian bridge when somebody else can do it for $300,000. Why is that? It's because all of the steps that you need to go through government doesn't sit well. So I'm not sure what we do, but I certainly look forward to the suggestions that'll come, and certainly appreciate all the work that Audit's done on all of these. I do have to say, since I was the chair of Audit 2 terms ago, it's nice to finally see back at full complement. Congratulations, Mr. Chair and Vice Chair. Some great work coming out of Audit for sure. So
Thank you very much.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Paleshi. Councillor Vicente.
Thank you very much, Chair. Perhaps then what we can do following that is if we could ask if staff would be willing and able to update the purchasing bylaw and have it brought to this committee for review. Is that direction that we can give today?
Through the chair to Councilor Vicente, absolutely.
So that would be the motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we have a motion. I think you might need to give verbiages to.
Just want to put the therefore be resolved. Or just the therefore. The resolution itself. Yeah.
Do you want to read it out?
I can read it.
Or you want to speak first?
Let me go on there real quick.
Councillor Paleshi?
I kind of just need to understand, why would it come back to Audit? Why wouldn't it go to Committee of Council or even Governance? Why Audit? Committee of Council?
So then, send it there.
Revised. Okay.
Yeah, so.
I don't know, so I'm not sure how long staff is gonna need, because the new director hasn't started, and based on Audit's findings, I think there's a lot of work to be done in that bylaw.
Yeah, the week after.
So, can we maybe get a suggested time from the CAO or somebody to give us a date that we can expect this, and
Q4 this year. Yeah. If we can leave it to the chair as Q4 of this year.
the very beginning of Q4.
Okay.
So I look forward to coming back and just prior to this, I just make a couple comments. I'm not a fan of limited tendering, and if you've heard this council and the mayor speak, competition is best for the taxpayer. So as much as we could limit this, we obviously want to. So the limited tendering. So as much as, I look forward to this coming back, and hopefully we can, again, close in some of this, because it's definitely important to do. But to you, Councillor Vicente, for your motion.
Yeah, just one little tweak. If we could ask the clerk to add after bylaw 19, 2018, to just add the words, among other changes, to mandate a conflict of interest disclosure, because there are far more updates to be made to the bylaw. Thank you.
Sure, good. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Oh, you're on to speak to the motion, sorry. Councillor Paleshi, my apologies.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we keep jumping on back and forth here. I'm kind of just thinking if we can talk to certain departments to see if a department comes to us and says, if you don't do limited tendering for this specific item, it would cost this much, I want to know that. Okay, so if there is kind of that out there in terms, anywhere in the city, I'd like to know that. I'd like to understand that entering into any kind of purchase order or procurement would escalate those costs. I think we need to know that for sure. Okay? And then leave it up to council to make the decision whether we're gonna charge the taxpayers more for breaks or not. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Paleshi. So we have a motion on the floor, moved by Councillor Vicente. All those in favor? The motion carries. I also need another motion to receive this staff report and presentation. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Paleshi to receive the presentation and approve the staff report. All those in favor? That motion carries. That brings us to 6.3, a staff report titled Asset Management, Small Equipment and Operating Tools Audit Report 2023. And there's a presentation for this one as well. Claire?
Yes, through the chair. I do want to take some time to thank the staff for this audit. Unfortunately, we have at least 4 division staff from them, so I hope it'll be a long list, but I would like to acknowledge them because I know our staff worked very hard with their staff and they responded really fast to us. And I just wanted to, so the audit involves city staff from 4 divisions, and we appreciate the cooperation and support from all of them. And I'll start by saying Rob Gasper, Director of Road Maintenance Operations and Fleet; Aaron Moss, Manager of Fleet Operations; Franco Masucci, Manager of Road Operations; Ed Fagan, Director Parks Maintenance and Forestry; Jim Pittman, Manager Parks Maintenance; Peter Gracci, Manager Parks Business Service and Administration; Viva Salas, Manager Community Service; Justin Kidd, Asset Management Coordinator; Rajka Ranchina, Director Facilities Operations and Maintenance; Dave Sout, Manager Facilities Service and Operations; Taryn Shahau, Manager Facilities Maintenance; Floyd Moffat, Supervisor Operations; Anand Patel, Director Recreation; Craig Booth, Manager Recreation; Samantha Yi, Manager Special Project and Administration. And last but not least, we always get support from the accounting services staff, so also want to recognize Maya Kuzmanov, Senior Manager and Deputy Senior Manager Accounting Services and Deputy Treasurer, and Nina Parak, Manager of Accounting Services. So appreciate their help. And again, the audit was conducted again by Mia Tree and Sahil Sharma, so the 2 of them will present the report. Thank you.
Thanks again, Claire. So I'll start with this presentation by providing some of the background information. Next slide, please. The city uses small equipment and operating tools to deliver public services. 4 operating units are the main users of such small equipment and tools. They are Recreation and Parks Maintenance and Forestry units under the Community Services Department, as well as Road Maintenance and Fleet, and Facility Operations under the Public Works and Engineering Department. Next slide, please. Although the city doesn't have a formally documented definition of this small equipment and tools, experienced staff did have their own definition at one point of time as such. Small equipment refers to machines with small engines such as lawnmowers or concrete saws, and they're typically considered as high-value items. And operating tools refer to handheld items. either battery powered or manually operated, such as a set of drills or hammers. And those are typically considered as low-cost items. Next slide, please. Up until 2017, the city had a small engine shop with 2 staff operating within parks maintenance. They were responsible for centrally managing small engine equipment for the Public Works and Community Services Department. The shop was involved in managing the life cycle of small engine equipment, and the management life cycle includes selecting and purchasing equipment, receiving and processing those new assets, creating and maintaining equipment inventory, assigning and tracking equipment, storing and inspecting equipment, maintaining and repairing equipment, and disposing equipment. Specifically, this shop was accountable for assessing the need for new equipment, purchasing and receiving it. It also kept track of the equipment inventory, assigned equipment to different operating units, and tracked the usage. Additionally, the shop was responsible for storing and maintaining the equipment, as well as handling repairs and disposal when necessary. Next slide, please. We're not able to provide an estimate of the city's past purchases, usage, and current inventory level of small equipment and operating tools because the city has not consistently tracked the purchases and usage of such small equipment and operating tools. Although we know that the small equipment managed by the small engine shop was around $2 million in 2017, there was equipment managed outside the small engine shop. Further, the city has grown significantly since 2017, so the $21 million is likely outdated. As the shop closure in 2017, both the equipment and its management were distributed to operating units. However, there has been no consistent tracking of these items by the operating units. Additionally, operating tools have always been managed in a decentralized fashion by individual operating units. Our audits noted that operating units have not consistently tracked the purchases and usage of operating tools. As a result, we do not have consolidated information on the city's operating tools, purchases, and usage. Next, please. The objective and scope of this audit are to assess the city's management practice of small equipment and operating tools, as well as to identify gaps to best practices. Next, please. Our audit noted that no formalized policy and procedures were put in place for managing the life cycle of small equipment and operating tools. Additionally, as discussed in the prior slides, data regarding their past purchases and current inventory levels is unavailable. This lack of formalized policy and procedures has resulted in limited management controls in asset planning, purchasing, tracking of both purchases and usage, repairs, disposals, storage, and safeguarding the assets. With that, I'll hand this over to Sekio to discuss the audit findings in detail.
Thanks, Mia. I'll jump right into the findings itself. So what we found was comprehensive policies and procedures for managing small equipment and operating tools have yet to be developed, either centrally or by operating units. The lack of comprehensive policies and procedures lead to inconsistent and ineffective life cycle management of small equipment and operating tools. The lack of comprehensive policies and procedures is partly responsible for the issues we have identified in this report. Next slide, please. Lack of formally documented and effectively communicated capitalization threshold. The capitalization threshold, initially set at $250 but gradually increased to $1,000, has been emailed to city staff. However, this threshold has yet to be formally documented in city policies. City staff have varied understanding of what the capitalization threshold is. The lack of formally documented and communicated capitalization threshold does not facilitate correct and consistent financial reporting. Also note, the actual thresholds for the purposes of asset planning and inventory control are at the discretion of individual city department and should be based on their operational needs. Next slide, please. Additionally, what we found was currently each unit independently purchases small equipment. This approach lacks coordinated planning that might lead to increased inventory and associated cost, especially for equipment commonly used across multiple units. The lack of central asset planning may lead to unnecessary purchases and missed opportunity to reduce small equipment spending. Next slide. Lack of proper controls in purchases. The acquisition of small equipment typically lacks formal documentation, such as signed and dated acquisition request form, to demonstrate management's review and approval. Without formal review and approval prior to asset acquisition, compounded by lack of control in purchase and usage tracking, equipment receipt and storage, expenditure on small equipment and operating tools may not be warranted. Next slide. Lack of receipt verification. What we found was the current practices within the operating units do not have specific steps for verifying and confirming the receipt of small equipment and operating tools against purchase approvals. The lack of asset receipt verification, compounded by inadequate asset inventory and tracking practices, does not ensure the city has received the asset purchased and that they are in good condition. Next slide. Absence of asset inventorizing, periodic count, and usage tracking. We noted that most operating units have yet not established an inventory list for small equipment and operating tools under their management, ranging from drills costing hundreds of dollars to a ride-on scrubber, which can cost $45,000 each. Without an inventory, no periodic counts have been performed on small equipment and operating tools. Most operating units do not adequately track usage. The absence of comprehensive inventory and periodic physical counts of small equipment and high-value tools, along with inadequate usage tracking practices, hinder the operating unit's ability to manage risk of asset theft and misappropriation, assess inventory levels, and make informed purchase decisions. Next slide. Finding 7, lack of safe storage for small equipment and operating tools. Implementing physical access controls and security measures varies across units, and some operating units can benefit from improved security measures. Small equipment labeling is often informal and requires improvement. The current technique includes asset stickers, wire tags, and numbering with markers. Labeling does not include an identifier for operating units for those commonly used equipment. Inconsistent physical access controls and security measures, compounded by inadequate asset labeling practices, increases the risk of asset misplacement, theft, and misappropriation. Absence of formalized process for maintenance, repairs, and disposals. The city primarily relies on external vendors for asset repairs. There is no system to log broken items and track their status until they return to service. Moreover, key information such as warranties is not recorded. This could lead to uncertainty about whether applicable warranties are effectively utilized. Due to a lack of standardized procedure for disposing of small equipment and tools, staff have a different understanding of disposal options. The lack of standardization may lead to more costly repairs or even longer operational downtime. Inappropriate disposal of equipment can result into non-compliance with applicable laws and regulations. Unsafe of disposal of small equipment and tools can cause fire hazards, explosions, and injuries in some cases. Next slide, please. To wrap it up, the city's management of small equipment and operating tools require immediate attention. The recommendations outlined in this report provide a roadmap to the city to improve its management of small equipment and operating tools. Next slide.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I have Councillor Paleshi on the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on this one, I think there's, and the picture is perfect, because I think there's a balance that needs to be struck here. Do I think that there needs to be a person that knows where every hammer is? Not necessarily. The drills? Maybe not. Chainsaws? Yeah. As we get into some of the bigger ticket item equipment, I think we need to know what's happening there. But certainly, do I think a manager needs to know how many hammers he has in the bag? Yes. And we don't plan on borrowing the hammer from the east end to take to the west end to be able to use. So whatever the balance is that can be had here for sure. When you start talking about lawnmowers or chainsaws, yeah, those are items that we need to get a handle on, and to make sure that if there are too many in the west, they can be brought over just for the east or vice versa, whatever's happening. Probably better to just keep them all in the northwest end of Brampton. But I think I'm glad that the audit was done, and I'm glad that we've recognized that there's some of the issues there, and hopefully with everything that's happening right now, we can find the solution for that. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Paleshi. Let's get a thing for hammers. There's a couple of things that I wanted to ask, and it was, my first question, and I'm not sure if staff would know that because there used to be quite a lot of turnaround here at the city, but is there a reason why in 2017 they dismantled that shop for the slightly larger tools to which Councillor Paleshi is almost discussing that we need to get a handle on? Because I know it seemed like in the presentation it was done in 2017, and we kind of just said forget it, and now we don't have someone doing it, and nobody knows where the hammers are.
Through to the chair. In my former director of parks, small engines was under parks. There was 2 staff and a 4-person that ran that out of Glidden Road. When we amalgamated with Public Works in 2015, a consultant was brought in, and it was to be moved under the fleet services area, small engines. In 2017, the 2 small engine mechanics were made mechanics, and the small engines group was pushed back to parks to say take care of your own equipment through an outside service. So they went through a competitive process, and Clarkmore Motors was awarded the contract to take care of small engines equipment. At the time, we were just moving into M5 with all the small engines equipment. So that never happened. There was a fee put on anything over $1,500 would be asseted into the M5, and anything under that after its life cycle would be replaced. So there wasn't any need to inventory it under the M5. So that became a problem for parks because they had no staff at that point to do any inventory or asset management of the system. So that's basically where we are today. I know in those days we used to do a lot of small engines repairs for all the different divisions. So we had all the snow blowers. We had some of the public works equipment that would come in because our guys were really good at that type of work. And it was a customer service piece internally for all the different divisions. And for me, that was cost saving because to run it out to wherever it goes to get fixed and then to go pick it up, that's all staff time and cost. So that's the background on it.
Okay, so my question to that is they did a lot of the repairs, but I also seen as part of, maybe we can bring up that slide that showed everything that was kind of done there. It was also, they knew where everything was, they tracked it, they serviced it. Obviously, assigning and tracking equipment, that's it.
Yeah, so through the chair, we had at Glidden Road an area where all that equipment was stored. So when you had and basically the other equipment was stored within trucks, whether it was forestry, horticulture, or parks maintenance. So if a piece of equipment broke down, it would be brought to the small engine shop. They would go back to, you can call it a small rental shop. They'd pick up a piece of equipment. You would sign that piece of equipment out. You would take in the broken piece. It would get fixed. They'd call you. You'd flip it over in the next morning or whenever it was fixed. So it was a real effective and efficient way of running the shop. And everything was inventory because it was in the shop. Each area of work had to do an inventory every Friday to ensure that the pieces they had in their area of work were there and accounted for.
So in your experience with this, it would make sense to bring something like this back.
Correct.
And in your experience, would you say that this would save the city money?
Yeah, I think it would save us quite a bit of money.
Is it safe to say we're going to look at bringing this back to help manage our equipment? And I agree with Councillor Paleshi. We don't need to know where every hammer is, but I believe the managers do. So for me, it's about knowing what we have within the city, and then it's everybody else's responsibility below. So I would love to see something like this come back. Yeah, 100%. And it's about responsibility and accountability for what we have. So
I know we've been, sorry,
go ahead.
Through the chair, we've been working with Audit, and we will look at the next budget cycle, 2025, to put together a proper small engine shop with the two staff that used to be there and a foreman to oversee that with an asset management part to it.
Yeah, so and for me, asset management is massive.
It's M5 for us.
So that's what I was gonna say. We already have the program that we pay for that can track where everything is. We just have to put in the data for it.
Correct.
Okay, so we already have most of it there, so it would make sense to do this. I don't have any other questions. I don't know if anybody else does. Anyone online? No? Okay, well, thank you, Rob, for that knowledge of information. Okay, so we have a motion moved by Councillor Tour to receive the presentation and approve the staff report. All those in favor? That motion carries. So, Madam Clerk, would that bring us to 6.6?
Through the chair, yes, 6.6.
Okay, our next item is 6.6. It is a staff report entitled Annual Report 2023. And I will note that there is a video as part of this presentation. However, due to some technical issues, if you are online, you will not be able to hear this video. It will be able to hear it in here, so I apologize for that. 6.6 was held, yeah. By me. Claire, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I just, in lieu of a presentation, there is a video. I think it was on the slides, second or third slides, third maybe. And just play that video. That would be, thank you. Just wanted to say we want to thank Strategic Communications to work with us on the video, and particularly Jeff Cowie. I think he might even be here today. So.
Hi, I am Claire Mu, Director of Internal Audit with the City of Brampton. Over the past year, I have been busy conducting role reviews and filling vacancies so that we're in a better position to deliver impactful audits that help the city to strengthen its governance, internal controls, and processes. We aim to deliver an audit work plan that reflects current and emerging risks within the city. We conduct compliance audits against laws and regulations, and operational audits that improve the effectiveness of city operations and service delivery. The objective of the Audit Committee is to enhance Council's understanding of financial and control reporting both internally as provided by the city's Internal Audit Division and statutorily as provided by the city's auditors. The committee enables Council to fulfill its oversight and stewardship responsibilities.
The committee strengthens the impartial, objective, and independent review of management practices through the internal and statutory audit functions, and provides a focal point for improved communication between council, internal auditors, statutory auditors, and management.
The internal audit team and committee roles are essential to the growth and development of the city and provide the necessary recommendations to maintain the highest standards of stewardship and due diligence over corporate processes and public funds.
There are other initiatives that we do behind the scenes that are less visible to management and staff, but are just as important. For instance, we manage the city's ethics hotline. We are developing a robust quality assurance and improvement program. And we're also automating the city's management action plan follow-up process. I'm happy to report that thanks to the combined effort and commitment of the internal audit team, the CAO's office, and HR, we have filled our vacancies and are now better positioned to provide adequate audit coverage for city operations and risks. Although our team was working through a staff shortage, we have accomplished a lot in 2023. We streamlined our reporting structure, signed the audit charter into city bylaw, updated the city's fraud governance structure. These accomplishments, along many more, were not possible without the support of the Audit Committee and the CAO. We also made a concerted effort to deliver the amended 2023 audit work plan, which consists of 8 audits. The main findings and recommendations of these audit reports are found within this annual report, along with other accomplishments. As we move forward to 2024, we will be focusing on staff retention and development, develop a robust quality assurance and improvement program, automate the city's management action plan follow-up processes, and foster a culture of integrity and accountability. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoy reviewing the rest of the annual report.
Thank you, and thanks for the video. I have Councillor Vicente on the board.
Thank you very much. Happy to move receipt of the report, but also just want to take this opportunity together with Chair Keenan to thank you, Claire, and your team for helping us as council to put together a more robust team to oversee the day-to-day operations of the city. I think the word that I heard that was the most powerful was about stewardship. And really, when residents look to us to ensure that the city is being run efficiently and right for them, to serve them properly, you are our team that is helping us to achieve those goals. And we, of course, from day one, this entire committee has been in full support of you and the work that you're doing. and we appreciate the efforts that all of you put into making sure that we dot the i's and cross the t's, as it were. So thank you very much, and for staff's understanding to work together with us and Audit Committee to ensure that the city is well-run. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we have a motion moved by Councillor Vicente to receive the presentation and approve the staff report. All those in favor? The motion carries. That brings us to, there's no new business. Brings us to question period. Item number 9, do any member question period? Do any members have any questions regarding any matters on today's agenda? Seeing none. On a public question period, now we can deal with item 10, public question period. This is where we invite members of the public to come forward to the podium to ask any questions about any recommendations made by committee regarding today's agenda. There's a 15 limit for any questions and answers for the public question period. Is there anyone present today, whether here or online, would like to come forward to ask any questions? Seeing none. Okay, so the next item is be closed session. Our next item of business is item 11, closed session business. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Paleshi to move into closed session to deal with the following item. 11.1, open meeting exception under section 2392A of the Municipal Act 2001, the security in the property of the municipality or local board, a security matter. All those in favor? The motion carries. How long do you need? Okay, so we'll meet in camera in 15 minutes.
Testing, 1, 2, check, check.
In the continued interest of transparency and open government, I will report in public session any outcome from today's closed session business. As a result of closed session, I wish to report the following: that an item was considered and no direction was given. That brings us to item 12, adjournment. Our last item of business is adjournment. Our next scheduled meeting is Tuesday, May 14th, 2024. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Tour to adjourn today's meeting. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.